I call the regular meeting of the Lakewood, Colorado City Council of February 8th, 2016 to order. 2016 to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Paul.
Here.
Wickman. Here. Vincent. Roybal.
Here.
Harrison. Here. Johnson.
Here.
Shakti.
Here.
Abel.
Here.
Coop.
Here.
Franks.
Here.
Gutwein. Here. You have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody who has made it out tonight, or if you're tuning in at home, live, or on the internet. It's a great Bronco victory Monday, so I know that the crowd is very excited, right? So just a quick housekeeping thing, actually two things. One is if you do have a cell phone, please put it on silent. And secondly, we do not have lights up here that normally tell you during public comment how much time is left. So we'll be doing hand signals. And we'll get to that here in a little bit. So, all right, Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silent prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. All right. We are on to public comment. And while the clerk's getting the roster, I'll just let you know that, I'll read from the script. This is the point in the meeting where the public is invited to address the City Council on items that did not appear on the agenda. All comments should be directed to the City Council. I ask that all in attendance observe the decorum of the City Council chambers and refrain from applause or audible support or discord with the speaker. There is a 3-minute limit per speaker. The indicator lights will not glow at any point in the conversation, but I'll give you this for 30 seconds, and when you're out of time, I'll kind of politely give you this and ask you to wrap up your comments. So with that, we'll begin public comment. Tonight, looks like Mr. Vaughn, you are first. Come on down. Welcome.
My name is Newt Vaughn and I live in Ward 5. I want to take this opportunity to thank the 5 council people that had the foresight to vote no on that, us donating tax dollars to charitable contributions. I can see a lineup coming up here to ask the city for tax dollars for charitable contributions, as well as private business. $100,000 would have went a long ways to putting another police officer on the street. Would have went a long ways to filling chuck holes, grading the streets, whatever we need to do. Tax dollars are for public use, not for private companies, whether they're non-profit or for profit. I'm personally not going to donate any goods anymore to the companies that were up here pleading for tax dollars. I donated quite a bit of stuff last year because of a passing away of a very close relative. And I got to tell you, I'm sorry I gave anything to the Jeffco Action Center because they're on my list. They're not going to get any more. I am proud to say that I have never voted for a tax increase, and that's one of the reasons, because of the excuse we got plenty of money, we'll go ahead and do this anyway. How many cases do you have to look through to find out whether there's somebody that, some court that found in favor of the law being broken? There's a law that says we are not to donate, cities and government is not to donate to private companies and private organizations. And there's a reason for that. The reason is government would have their hand in the operation of it. So the next time this comes up for a vote, the rest of you think about it. And as far as the Ward 5 survey, if they got it at the same time I did, I wouldn't have had time to put it on the internet. I got it just before the council meeting. So I know you didn't have time to look at 75% of the people who were in favor of this thing. I had a lot of votes when I ran for this council, and I'll tell you what, I bet you every one of them were against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. Ms. McGill? Welcome.
My name is Shiloh McGill, and I live in the Iber neighborhood. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with y'all again. My neighbors and I, almost without exception, in fact, I can't think of an exception, were so relieved that the high-density apartment project proposal by WASI Partners at 1310 Independence was withdrawn. We're very, very relieved that we're not facing that now, but we know that we're going to be facing something. And so a couple of weeks ago when I was here visiting with y'all, I said that I thought because of the historical drainage problem on the property, you know, that it really might not be suited for a building site, and asked that y'all consider buying the property and making it a public park or an open space or a community garden or something. And in fact, I found some precedents for that, because in the 80s, what is now the James Ritchie Park at 1301 Carr had the same drainage problem, and the city bought that property and made it into a park. So maybe that's helpful, I don't know. But I'm back to plead my case again, and I've got one more point, and a really good point, I think. The developers had put up the chain across the frontage of that vacant land across from Iber, so that people could not park in there. And I mean, I have lived in that neighborhood 48 years. For the entire time I've lived there, parents have used that frontage of that 1310 Independence for pickup and drop off of their children, and then to turn around, which was always kind of important. It became more important when the light rail went in, because with the light rail coming by every, 10 minutes, it backs up pretty quickly. But in any event, my point is that they chained that off on the 20th or the 21st of January, and it has really had a negative impact on the traffic. Maybe Iber would come and speak to that, or y'all would go and speak to Iber. But if the city owned it, I'm hurrying, if the city owned it and it was a park or whatever, the frontage, which is like 150 frontage feet, 30 feet deep before you get to that drop off, because it drops off severely to the east, that could be the same thing for Iber. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming out. Mr. Pollock? Bless you.
Bob Pollock on Pikeview Street.
Welcome.
The specific area at 1310 Independence Street is the exact situation as the James Ritchie Park. Per a web page linked to the City of Lakewood, the drainage ditch running through the property was renovated and redirected to empty into a new constructed culvert and spillway which flows underneath Carr Street in an effort to avoid flooding in the lower lying neighborhood area. The meandering ditch in Ritchie Park is now a safer place for local kids to play in and enjoy. Why can't we do the same thing with a property at 1310 Independence Street? Start with condemning it or public domain. As far as the development of our neighborhood is concerned, We already have more than enough low-income or Section 8 housing on both sides of Colfax. It appears that wherever RTD lays a light rail line, it is followed by increased crime rates, increased traffic congestion, and decreased property values. From what I've seen, it seems that has happened to single-family houses in Denver near the South Line and possibly along the East Line from downtown. There already is and will be more of an impact on West Metro Fire Protection District as well. We do not need the Wizard of Oz smoke and mirrors to shove this housing down our throats. If you, Mr. Mayor, and the City Council embrace an inclusive neighborhood and insist on more Section 8 housing, then put it in Section 19, Township 4 North, Range 69 West. By the way, without giving any addresses, that's within 1 mile of one or more of you. The city owns approximately 320 acres of undeveloped or open space land in the area. Be creative and work out a deal to accomplish your goals there. If that is a total failure, please look at the area west of Oak Street and the old Hugh M. Woods location. There seems to be additional opportunities there also. To repeat a statement given by another resident, if I wanted to live in a ghetto, I would have moved into a ghetto. We already have enough issues and blight coming from low income and Section 8 housing.
Thanks, sir. All right, that is the extent of my roster. Would anybody else like to speak under public comment? All right, with that, I will close public comment, and I can let the folks know from the 13th and Independence, our staff will continue to work with your council members and try to get you information as to different things and different options. Will the clerk please read item 5 into the record?
Item 5, presentation, citizen commendation.
Chief Paletta, welcome, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Paul, members of City Council. It's my distinct privilege to recognize Lakewood resident and business owner Jerry Burton this evening.
Can I interrupt? If you want to come back behind here and take a picture, you're more than welcome to. Just so you know. Yep. All right, go ahead.
Thank you. On October 16th, 2015, Agent Jim Butler of the Lakewood Police Department responded to a welfare check at Iber Elementary School concerning a student who was believed to be unkept and homeless. Agent Butler learned that the 10-year-old girl was living with her father in their Chevy Suburban, which was parked in the parking lot of Colfax and Wadsworth at the Walmart. Agents made contact with the father and learned that he had recently moved to Lakewood and had been unable to secure housing due to the fact that he did not have a working vehicle that was preventing him from getting stable employment. Agent Butler and Sergeant Dave Hoover took the initiative to seek assistance for the family that included collecting funds from fellow employees. When owner Jerry Burton of Sun Valley Automotive learned of the family's plight, he agreed to repair the vehicle at no charge, and he arranged for the donation of parts. He completed additional diagnostics on the vehicle, installed a new battery, windshield wipers, and changed the oil, returning the vehicle to full working order. The family's story was covered on 9 News, and as others learned of the family's plight and of Mr. Burton's generosity, additional donations were received. With the assistance of Mr. Burton and the Lakewood Police Department, this family was able to find stable housing and get back on their feet. Jerry Burton, please accept this Chief's Citizen Commendation in recognition of your partnership with the Lakewood Police Department and your willingness to help a Lakewood family in need. Your unconditional support served to motivate others to do the same, and for that we are extremely grateful. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for this award, and I by no means did this prepared to receive anything like this. I did it, you know, what comes around goes around, and I was happy to help the police office, Lakewood Police Department, and the family. So thank you very much.
Mr. Burton, I also just want to thank you. I know that you've done, this isn't the first time you've really tried to help people in our community, and thank you and your family for all you do, and your longtime residents and have done a lot. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. And along those lines too, I'll thank Agent Butler and Sergeant Hoover for helping as well. Community policing is real. All right, will you please read item 6 into the record?
Item 6, presentation, Our Energy Future, Excel Energy.
Were you trying to speak? Your light wasn't on. That doesn't do it. Sorry, Mr. Gibson, welcome. Thank you for coming down. And looks like you got a presentation, quick download and overview of maybe some potential things. There's no action needed on this issue, but wanted to share some information, so welcome.
No action is needed, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Preston Gibson. I am with Excel Energy. My address is 5460 West 60th Avenue in Arvada. I appreciate your time this evening, and I just would be remiss if I didn't say go Broncos. See, I've got my orange and blue on here too, so yeah, keep it up. Hopefully next year as well. But thank you very much for the time. Today I want to talk a little bit about a program, a comprehensive new energy program that's very, very important to Excel Energy. You know, we're going to be talking about things like Solar Connect, microgrids, smart meters, gas reserves, LED lighting, and things like that tonight. But I wanted to tell you that basically we have been for a long time very supportive of our renewable energy industry and demand-side management. We've been number one in wind energy for 11 years in a row. We're not the largest utility in the country, but in terms of wind, we've been number one again for 11 years in a row. We're in the top 10 for solar capacity. We projected to exceed the state's 30% renewable energy standard by 2020. In fact, we're already at 22%, so we'll clearly exceed that by 2020. We're going to complete our Clean Air, Clean Jobs plan next year. We've gotten most of the coal out of this region. In fact, our major power plant, which you'll see if you're driving north on I-25 at about 60th, if you look to the east, that's our Cherokee power plant. Next year, we're going to take the last of 4 units and we're going to refuel that with natural gas, much, much cleaner burning fuel. We're spending nearly $600 million just on that one plant, part of Clean Air, Clean Jobs. We're projected to reduce carbon dioxide emissions 35% by 2020 from 2005 levels. We've already reduced CO2 emissions by about 25%, so over since 2005. So a lot of times we talk about we've got to do something. Well, as a company, we actually are taking steps in that direction. We're a national top 10 for energy efficiency. We have a very wide array of demand-side management programs, which are essentially energy efficiency programs. One of Forbes magazine's most trustworthy companies in America, recognized as one of the most valuable employers by the military. And of course, we invest a lot of money in our communities, which is very important to me. So I guess the question is, you know, we've done a lot, we're continuing to do a lot, but where do we go from here? You know, what is the next step? Because you're always looking for that next thing you can achieve. And the program that we're going to be talking about, our Energy Future, we're already starting to receive some national attention for this idea of the kinds of things that we're sort of packaging in terms of a comprehensive way to look at energy delivery. So essentially, imagine a day when our customers have more energy, more control over their energy, and can design a plan that best suits their needs. You know, we've all got smartphones, at least I think we probably do. I've had one for years. I had the original BlackBerry, if you remember those things. And we can pick our plan. There's a lot of different options. Well, for many years until really more recently, you had one thing to do in terms of getting your energy from Excel Energy. You just paid your bill and we delivered your energy. It's not like that anymore. Of course, there are options now with solar rewards, wind source, and some other options where you can actually purchase renewable energies. But we're looking to go well beyond that. And our real focus is customer empowerment. Let the customer choose what they want in terms of energy delivery. And we want to, while we're doing this, we want to be sure to keep prices competitive. We think that's critically important. So while we are one of the national leaders in terms of wind and solar and so on, we still have been keeping our prices competitive. They are very competitive, and they're about average or a little below average from a national So again, it's about powering technology. We're going to talk about powering technology. We're going to talk about sort of two-way energy flow on our system. We're going to talk about really customer choice, because customer choice is what is really one of the key components of this program. So as I mentioned a minute ago, we're going to be talking about a number of different options and things we're looking at doing, and we've just recently filed a case, our new gas reserves filing. So you might know that obviously gas prices fluctuate, and when they're higher, we have to pass those costs along to our customers. When they're lower, we do the same thing. We pass those lower costs to our customers. But right now, prices are very low compared to where they have been in the last 10 years. We've seen prices that are approaching about $13 per million BTUs of gas. They've been as low as about 2.5. We're a little above that now, but what we see is we're on the low end. So we're looking now at investing in gas reserves, working as a joint venture partner with a company that does this gas production and is their major focus of business, and essentially hedging the price against future rises in the gas price. So saving our customers money by doing that. And we're seeking regulatory approval of this. We've filed a case in front of the Public Utilities Commission for approval. The Public Utilities Commission, just as a primer, we report to the Public Utilities Commission. We're a regulated monopoly, as probably many of you understand, and they are the regulator. They regulate everything that we do. So when we propose new programs, they regulate that. It's essentially an application. We call it a case. In public hearings like this, you take public testimony. They take interveners, which give public testimony, so all those kinds of different things. But nonetheless, we filed that program with the Public Utilities Commission, expect them to take action on it this year. One of the things that we've done and have done over time is we've worked on battery storage technology. Obviously, one of the problems with solar energy is it obviously shines during the day and it doesn't at night. How can you store that? If you've read much about it, you've probably learned that there are companies working on battery storage technology. We're one of those. We've actually invested in battery storage technology. There's a part called Solar Energy Technical Acceleration Center, SolarTAC, out in the Aurora area. And several years back, we invested a lot of money in terms of testing a very large, like semi-truck size battery to see how that might work for energy storage. We've also worked with National Center for Atmospheric Research in terms of wind forecasting. We've got wind forecasting down to 10 to 15 minute increments now, so we can basically ramp down the production of electricity with our gas-fired units and just bring on that energy production with wind. We can be ready for it. We're prepared for it. So we've done that. But again, that's past history. So where do we go from here? What are the next steps? And so we're doing what we call innovative clean technology programs. And we've got two projects, and one of those, they both have to do with battery deployment and solar energy. And with the Panasonic Corporation, they're building a new facility out near DIA. And they've connected with us, and we're working with them on essentially a microgrid that's connected to our grid, our system, our electric wiring system's called a grid. But they're going to have a microgrid, and they want to use a lot of solar panels on their garage, on their parking garage. But they want to work with us in terms of how can we store that with batteries, and then at night put that energy back onto the system, again, that two-way flow. So this project is something that we filed, again, an application or rate case with the Public Utilities Commission last October for them to look at approving that. We plan to invest about $6.7 million in that project, and our partners plan to invest about $3.6 million in that. And DIA is also going to be a partner in that one. Another project, another innovative clean technology project, is at Stapleton. And what we'd have, instead of one battery, we'd have a series of batteries that, again, save that solar energy and then, and essentially produce that back onto the grid at night for the residences in a certain pilot area, pilot project in Stapleton. And we have potential partners of like NRail, you know, we obviously know NRail, and Electric Power Research Institute, and some others on that. So again, looking toward the future, what's next, and how can we be, as a company, be a leader in doing that? And the next slide is a modern grid. Modernization of the distribution grid is inevitable. And again, it's about two-way power flow. Currently, we, since 2006, we've had our Solar Rewards program. And that enables, we provide essentially an incentive so people can put solar panels on their rooftops and put that energy back on our system. So it's essentially a two-way flow of energy. But we're looking at other options for two-way flows of energy. And so we need a modern grid that can accommodate this. And battery storage is also very key, because a grid, a power line, can only take a certain amount of energy, a certain amount of voltage. Just like any water pipeline, can only send so much water down a water pipeline. Same thing is true with electric power conductors or electric cables. So we're looking at ways to actually store some of that energy and make our system much more efficient. We're also looking at piloting interactive smart meters, a 10,000 interactive smart meter pilot program. This is approved, and then over the next couple of years, we'll have even more and more smart meters on our system. Let's move on to LED lights. We've all been, probably most of us have LED flashlights, right, or LED headlamps, and we know we got LED lights in our house now, and there's probably LED lights. Those are probably LED lights right there. Why not have LED street lights? Well, we've been testing LED street lights for years. We wanted to do it right because we have over 200,000 street lights just in Colorado. And if we did it wrong, it would be a big problem. So we've been testing pilot programs. We've been doing pilot program testing up in the Midwest. We've done pilot testing program in the Highlands area of Denver with LED lights. And we found that they are very reliable. We wanted to be sure to test reliability because they're expensive. You want to be sure they're going to last. We wanted to test the light quality. I think many of us, or at least, I don't know many, but certainly I remember mercury vapor lights when I was a kid. Then we went to HPS, the high pressure sodium, so they went from sort of a bluish white to this weird color that we always look at. What is that all about, And now we're going from this weird color back to a whiter, cleaner, crisper light that uses about 40 to 50% less energy. Prices have come down. That was another thing that was a real hindrance to us, is that it used to be, just a few years ago, prices were like $600 for the fixture. Now they're $200 or less for the fixture. They've dramatically come down. So now they make sense for us. So we've created two options for cities to take advantage of actually putting these LED lights in their the Cobra head lights that you see over the streets. Option A is cities can essentially have us come in and replace all the existing HPS lights, high pressure sodium, at no cost to the city, and you get a 5 to 7% savings over your current rate, so you have new modern technology and energy savings. The option B is you can actually pay to install and buy those lights, and then the savings is greater, so you'll save about 11 to 19%, and there's a payback period we estimate of about 12 years. So there's a couple of different options. We've been actually working with your staff to talk to them about that, so they're considering that. And now we're on to the Phase 2 rate case. And essentially what we're looking at now is when you get your energy bill, there's a number of different charges, but essentially you get a charge for electricity. We're going to break that into a grid charge and an electricity charge, so you see exactly what you're paying for. It's more transparent, if you will. And it sets the way and paves the way for more transparency in terms of the types of energy you might be wanting to take advantage of. Because you can pay for the energy. If it costs a little more for certain forms of energy, you'll see what you're paying for. The grid will be the charge that you pay to use that grid based on how much you use it based on the energy. Now, also with Phase 2, we're setting a cost for relocating and removing streetlights. We do that at no charge for a public project. The city has a road widening project, we move them, no cost. If if there was a movement to buy all the streetlight system in the city, then we would have that, you would have that capability and would specify those costs. We also have had issues and concerns over attachments to streetlights over the years, banner attachments. That's addressed in this. We're no longer going to require any agreements for that. We're not going to require any insurance. We just want to be sure your poles are capable of handling them. Solar Connect. Solar Connect is a program that we think is going to be very popular. We have a lot of solar energy on our system currently. We're going to buy, if this goes through, an entirely new solar, essentially a solar garden, if you will, but it's going to be a large solar panel farm. And we'll put energy directly onto our system. And then if you want to, instead of having panels on your rooftop, which may not even give you enough energy to power your needs, you can pay maybe a little bit of an increment of a little more charge, which we're still working on the details, for solar energy. And you can say, look, I'm 50% solar energy or I'm 100% solar energy, depending on what you want to choose. You could say, I want to be 50% solar energy, but I don't want any panels, and I want to be 50% wind. And you could take advantage of our wind source program, pay a little more for wind, a little more for solar, and be a completely renewable, just as an example of how that could work. And I'm nearing the end here. So basically, in conclusion, this is really a plan that we're looking at. It's a comprehensive plan. It's a comprehensive plan for the future. It's all about empowerment. In some ways, it's about economic development, because if we want to attract companies that are very focused on renewable energy and energy for the future, which a lot of companies are. A lot of companies are very green and focused that way. We want to provide that kind of service for them. And we also want to keep our prices stable. We want to keep our prices reasonable. It's something that has always been very important to us and to our customers. And I want to close with just a few statistics that we pulled together. And this is for 2014. I don't have 2015 calculated yet, but just some things you might find of interest. In Lakewood, we have 65,000 electric customers, 7,300 business customers. Kind of amazing. Gas customers, 55,000 and 4,400 business customers. You might know that we have a franchise agreement, and that franchise agreement pays 3% of our gross collected revenues, or $4.8 million. We paid $4.7 million in taxes for about $9.5 million to the city in 2014. We spent more than $4.8 million with Lakewood suppliers in 2014. So we actually did business as a company with suppliers and vendors in Lakewood to the tune of almost $5 million. We also are very supportive of charitable causes. And in fact, Red Rocks Community College, we supported that foundation, and we gave them a check for, I think, $15,000 last year for one of their programs that they have for their students. And we supported Green Mountain Junior Football Association as well as some others. A couple final stats is that in terms of energy efficiency in 2014, we rebated $1.8 million to your residents and businesses, and 2,283 businesses were on our premises, which means customers were on wind source, and for solar rewards, we had 862 systems. So just some numbers. I thought it might be interesting to you to hear those, and I appreciate your time this evening, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Preston. Thanks for coming out. We appreciate working with you, and you're always willing to pick up the phone when there's any questions or anything along those lines. We do have a couple questions, so I will start with Councilor Shakti.
Thank you for coming today. And thank you for all that Xcel has done in terms of the existing portfolio with solar and wind. I think it's really exciting, and also to hear that you're looking at ways to do more. And in terms of the conversation we have up here, streetlights are exciting, because I've been in a number of conversations about streetlights where we would love to see LED, so it's great to see that moving along. And then solar gardens, I think, are also have really the potential to be transformative. I understand you're talking about the grid charge and electric charge. I understand that separation and that there's some cost associated with the grid. I would hope that cost isn't too high so that we still see a lot of different options provided. And then I just wanted to thank you for the outreach. So for being here today, and also we get invited to different educational events with Xcel, and I actually went and saw the board where you send all the electricity to the right places, and then also the testing center in Aurora with the big batteries and different things.
SolarTech, right.
Yeah. So thank you for providing that information to us, because although it's not something we are doing, it's something that's really very fundamental to our community. So it's great to learn more about it.
It's our pleasure. Thank you.
Councilor Wickman.
On a personal note, good to see you, Preston.
Good to see you.
And I very much appreciate Xcel's commitment to renewable energies. That's very important to me personally. I've participated in the wind source, so I'm really glad to hear all this stuff. Now I have to switch hats. I also am in position, I have constituents that will ask me they can't come to the meetings and things like that. So they ask me to ask a question so they can hear it on TV. So I was given 3 questions to ask you tonight. One of them is on electromagnetic pulses, the EMPs. You talked about, the grid, and right now the grid is very vulnerable to, an EMP pulse, taking it down. Do you have any plans to, enhance the grid so it will not go down an EMP?
Well, this is a very large concern about, just in terms of just grid security is a concern of ours. We're constantly concerned about terrorist attacks on the grid. That's just one reason we don't give out any information. We have cities and others that ask we want to know your entire system in our city. And we don't do that. We don't want to make that available, because as soon as it's in the public realm, it's available for the public to see. So we try to keep that information close at hand and very, very tightly controlled. EMP is something, of course, we're concerned about as well. I know that all electric utilities are, and I know that we're working towards solutions. And I'm not an expert in that field, but I know that I'd just like to tell your citizens to rest assured that we take this threat very, very seriously. And we are taking actions about that in case it were to ever become a reality. So don't have the statistics or the details, but we're taking the issue very seriously.
Great. Second question I got was on streetlights. I've been told that it's been taking a month or maybe 2 to get streetlights repaired once they go down. And they wanted me to ask you, why is it taking so long?
Well, every case is a little bit different. And it's kind of crazy. I'll tell you that, whereas we do a lot of things well as a company, if you can't get one street light fixed, that ruins your reputation, right? I mean, that's what happens. It's just like the city probably does a lot of great work, but if you can't get that pothole fixed, that's what happens. So it just depends. Sometimes depending on the light, it may be a light that's difficult to obtain. If it's just a normal street light, it shouldn't be. Sometimes it gets lost in the mix. Sometimes we just don't do the best job on it. Sometimes it's not our fault. Sometimes when these outages are reported, they're not reported to the right place, and the person that should get it didn't get it, and it just languishes. So it's just a wide variety of reasons. We strive to get street lights replaced within 5 business days, and generally I'd say we get them done by then, but there are those exceptions that take a long time. And I will say that we work closely with your city. We get comments from Angela Klein very often. The citizens will reach out to Angela, and she'll reach out to us, and we'll make the connection and get it fixed.
And I can't personally verify the month or 2. I just passing on the comment.
No.
All right, then the last one, somebody was doing a research of our campaign finance documents, and they came across something that they thought was unusual. They wanted to know, how come Xcel is giving Bronco tickets to our mayor? They're wondering what the connection there is.
Bronco tickets to the mayor? Well, we invite many business leaders and elected officials to attend Broncos games and other things. We have a suite at the Pepsi Center. We have a suite at the Mile High, Sports Authority Mile High. And we invite our friends to those games. I don't know how else to say that. So
Okay, thank you.
okay, thank you.
Councilor Abel.
Thank you. Preston's been around Lakewood and Jeffco for a long time, and he barely skimmed over the community involvement. Every year they're saving lives over at near Meadowlark Park because the fellows who used to string the lights around the Christmas tree we light every year are not as spry as they used to be. So they turned to Xcel, who now pays to have those lights hanging in that tree before our Christmas ceremony every year. Thank you for that. Also, not long ago, it came to our attention that a playground, privately owned playground, a church playground, it's used by a number of kids in the neighborhood, whether they attend that church or not, needed a light put over the playground to make it safer. And I don't know the outcome yet, but I called Mark Stutz with Xcel, and Mark's a Lakewood boy. Preston also lives in Ward 5, I believe. But within half an hour, Preston called with a solution that was free. And I want him to know I appreciate the quick response, and our community appreciates the contributions you make. Thank you. And Xcel, when I say you, as well as you personally. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Councilor Vincent?
Just real quickly, there's a substation that I think you call it a substation, that's gated off, but is absolutely pitch black, no lights, not on the street. Would there be somebody I could contact to see about getting at least a light there?
You could contact me. Why don't we
Okay.
connect? And I'll be glad to work with you on that. You know, one thing we don't like to do is sometimes highlight all of our equipment, so again, the security issue. But certainly we should look into it, so I'll be glad to do that.
Okay, because I'd love to look at it with you, and we can go out there at 6 o'clock at night and see what it looks like.
We'll have to take somebody that's an expert, but that's one of the things I do. I'm a liaison between the company and the community, and vice versa.
Perfect, thank you.
So I'm glad to help.
Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Preston, thank you for the very nice presentation. I really appreciate it. You're a stand-up person, and it's always good to see you. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you.
Very much. Great to see you.
Preston, I'll leave you with one final question. Sometimes we do hear from folks about removing stoplights or removing light poles in a cul-de-sac or along their street. Is that a city program to have those removed, or does that go directly through Xcel?
Well, it would depend. Most of the street light poles are Xcel Energy owned, and so it would be a request that would go through Xcel Energy. Then we would go out and evaluate that street pole. And sometimes it's not just a street pole; it's the street light. Maybe a dimmer bulb or something like that sometimes works for people, or a cutoff where there's not as much light spill. So sometimes there's things that we can do to take care of situations like that.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for coming out and spend some time.
Excuse me, that last comment, now I stimulated something. You know, I go out to observatories and stuff like that. And at one of the observatories, they talked about, what was it, there's some sort of program called like Dark Nights or something
Sky?
like, what's it called?
Dark sky.
Dark skies, yeah, to try to keep the light down so you can see the skies better. You're familiar with the program, evidently? Is there
I've heard of Dark Sky for many years, yes.
any chance we might kind of do some of that?
Well,
Sarah actually prescribes to it. Your development in Ward 4, Councilor Wickman. They're a Dark Sky Initiative community.
Well, I will tell you that LED lights make a huge difference. There's not as much glare. If you go online and just type in glare, LEDs, and so on, we've just recently Googled something. I think it's the skyline of, I think it's some city in California that went from HPS, high pressure sodium to LEDs, and it shows the glare, just taking two pictures from the same location. It's phenomenally better. Huge difference.
One last question, it looks like, from Councilor Gutwein.
Thank you. So I just wanted to mention that I had a neighbor who asked for a stoplight or a street light fixed, and it was done very quickly. So thank you for that. I'm also really excited to hear about the LED street lights, and to learn more about that as well. I had one question about when the price structure changes to the grid pricing, how will that affect existing solar customers through through other that either lease or own?
Well, let me say that, first of all, this case or this application is going to be going through a lot of public hearings with the Public Utilities Commission. We don't know exactly where it's going to end up and what kind of fee there's going to be and so on. We have a commitment as a company to continue supporting the existing programs where people put solar panels on the rooftops, as an example, in the Solar Gardens program. We've committed 50 megawatts towards that program for this next year. So we're still very much in support of that. We're just trying to provide other options because sometimes, for example, if companies want to be known as a green company, it's very important to them. It's important to their mission and their values. And they may not have the space to put solar panels, but they could, if we had a Solar Connect program, they could buy into that program. But we're still going to be very supportive of those distributed solar energy programs.
Great, thank you. And options are definitely great too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you very much.
Clerk, please read item 7.
Item 7, presentation, Head Start's annual report.
All right, looks like we have a presentation tonight from Ms. Sherry Peterson, our Head Start administrator. Welcome.
Good evening. It's a privilege to share our annual report from our school year, actually from 2014-2015. It was requested that we wait for the new city council and mayor to be seated to share our information with you and have you become familiar with our program. The annual report that you received in a paper copy does represent the last city council, seated as of July 1st, 2015, but you will not be slighted. You'll be in this next year's report. I'm Sherry Peterson, and I'm the Head Start administrator for the Head Start program. We are housed in the Family Services Division, which is also part of the Community Resources Department. After highlights of the annual report, I'll be sharing with you our annual board training, which is a part of our Head Start requirement. Our annual report is required of the Head Start Act of 2007, and it covers a full school year from July 1st to June 30th, or a school year cycle. And I'm going to outline some of the key program statistics that we saw in our previous year. The Head Start grant designates the City Council as our governing board. The mayor appoints 3 persons to our advisory committee that work with me, the executive director, and our policy council to review our fiscal and programmatic data. The policy council is made up of parent representatives from each site, community members, and also a past parent. This group approves, recommends actions to our advisory committee, and this process results in a shared governance between our Policy Council, Advisory Committee, and Governing Board. Once a year, the Head Start Policy Council and Advisory Committee meet to review our funding application. For 2014-2015, we did have a funded enrollment in Head Start of 126 children. All of these children were from families who were at or below 100% of poverty. We provided services to a total of 144 children due to the transition of children and families moving in and out of the neighborhoods in our school. 92 of those children were enrolled just for 1 school year and went on to kindergarten. Our waiting list on an average is about 20. We're a community-based program with 5 locations. Many of them in your wards. Lasley Head Start is located approximately Louisiana Lamar, right across from Lasley Elementary School. Our Patterson Head Start is located at Florida and Wadsworth. Our Green Mountain Head Start is on the west side of town, Alameda. Daniels Head Start is off of Union Street in our northwest part of the city. And our 11th Avenue Head Start is at Lamar and 11th. So currently we have 14 teaching staff and 4 family support workers that provide daily interaction for our children and families at these 5 locations. I just wanted to show one of course, that's our premier site. This is our 11th Avenue Head Start that the city dedicated 5 years ago. And it is a busy, busy place. Our demographics are really representative of the city and really vary from year to year. We are currently serving 76% white, 10% black, 9% biracial or multiracial, 3% Asian, 1% Native Hawaiian or Pacific Island, 1% American Indian. Additionally, 61% of our families identify as being of Hispanic or Latino origin. Same goes with primary language. We pretty much see 68% of our families who claim that English is a home language. 25% declare Spanish as a home language. And our 7% is where we see a lot of variety. Many years we have Asian languages, we have Russian, and several years ago we had African dialects. So it really varies from year to year as to who is in our community. These are just some of our family statistics. They include information about 2-parent, single, and we started tracking last year military families for the first time. This shows their engagement in the workforce, but what this information does not represent is a breakdown of our families that are engaged in schooling, job training, or have other sources of income, like many of our children are supported by grandparents, so they might be on Social Security. And you can kind of see what that looks like. So our program budget a year ago was represented, we were part of the Child and Adult Care Food Program, the USDA, so we received $73 from them. We ate a lot of meals, over 3,300 meals that can include breakfast, a lunch, an afternoon snack. So we try to provide 2/3 of a daily requirement for an individual preschool child. We also received our federal Head Start funds, and that was a little over $994,000. Our non-federal share, our in-kind match, which is a requirement of the grant, ran at $255,000. In our volunteer bank that went toward our non-federal share, it was a little over $38,000. So the fun part, what were some of our highlights? And what we did is Patterson Head Start completed the first phase of our outdoor classroom. Everything that a child could do inside the classroom, they could do outside the classroom. And we had our opening ceremony in August, and we're looking forward to, of course, this is it in August when it's beautiful and green and sunshiny. But even in the winter, the children can go outside and be involved and play. Of course, Head Start is a school readiness act. That is why we get funds. So how are our children doing? We measure the children in 6 areas of development 3 times a year and chart their experiences. All of the children by the end of the year are rating on the typical range of skills needed to progress to kindergarten. And we want to make sure, and sometimes, like last year, we saw a heightened growth in social skills and also cognitive skills. And that is really a real plus for children moving on to our kindergarten. We also had a family literacy event. We chose the book, The Artist Who Painted the Blue Horse by Eric Carle. The event highlighted the opportunity for children to actually pet a real horse who was decorated in blue hearts. And then we had the Jeffco Library there. We had all our community partners, including the Heritage for Culture and Arts, to come out and really explore with our families literacy, but also the arts. Not only did the horse receive a makeover, but some of our children did too. We had an exceptional face painter there. At our annual family game night, we had families who participated in board games, sack races, puzzles. every family received a board game to take home and start their own family game night. And we think this is such a great way to involve families on such a basic level. So I'm going to bring to the governing board training. So again, you as the governing board or the city council and the mayor have assigned most of the duties and responsibilities to the advisory committee. In general terms, you have the legal and fiscal responsibility, and you receive at least this annual training and my annual report as part of my responsibilities to this board. Again, the legal responsibility is primarily assigned to our advisory committee. We ensure that the program complies with all the federal rules and regulations, and they also are general oversight of program and staff members. They also review all of our monitoring progress through monthly and then annual reports. But you as a city council must perform at least one duty, which is our signature on our grant application, which the mayor will do. And then you will also, at the end, we'll have our resolution come before the city council at the end of February. So again, the fiscal responsibilities, again, primarily assigned to the advisory committee, and they help us safeguard our federal funds, and the program follows all city guidelines, and we participate in the city audit every year. Our transparency shows detailed information regarding all transactions distributed both to the advisory committee and the policy committee, which is again made up of our families and our community members. You also help ensure funds that are used for the intended purpose, regularly review our budget and expense reports, and question expenses when needed. Other general duties are assigned to the advisory committee include assurance of compliance with federal regulations. You also help us review and receive annual audit reports for the agency, and you work with our policy council, a group of program parents and community reps, to really provide a quality program. So where are we this year? In our current year, we have enrolled 100 Head Start families. We also expanded one of our programs. We did a trial at our Lasley Head Start site, and we have extended services to 6 hours a day for families. And this has been very popular with our families. So as funds and opportunities were available, we're moving our program from traditional preschool hours to hopefully longer days and hours of service. This will help increase children's exposure to school readiness activities and support families with the increased need to work. Our new Early Head Start home-based program is set to serve 20. This includes prenatal moms and children under the age of 3. Our Early Head Start program actually is a home visiting program where our trained home visitors go in once a week and work with the parent to work with their child. So it's a really intense program. What we've seen is that we've been able to intervene with early intervention, parenting practice, health, and wellness, which we know is strong school readiness skills. We also are working hard to discover new ways to support children and families. Our community and families have asked us to evaluate longer hours and days of service in our Head Start classroom. Our families would like us to build stronger connections with the workforce here in the city to support families with current and future job opportunities. That is a goal that a lot of our families have. Increase opportunities for healthy lifestyle practices through nutrition and wellness training. And a lot's going on with community gardens, all kinds of great things around nutrition training, and the families are taking advantage of that. Then we also want to increase our families' ability to engage in the community they live in, because we find that stability really, really does go with being involved in your community. I want to thank you for your support of our program and serving our families and children who experience homelessness and poverty. The families want to be a part of a dynamic community, and the City of Lakewood can be a strong part of that process. This concludes my presentation of the annual report required and the governing board training. We'll be submitting a resolution on February 22nd asking for your approval of the Head Start Early Head Start grant.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Appreciate all the work that you do, and it's always rewarding when you bring in the kids. I think that comes later on in the spring, but it's
I promise fun pictures, and there's more in the annual report.
beautiful. So we do have a couple questions for you, and just to highlight the folks who do serve on the board from council, it's Councilors Harrison, Abel, and Vincent who are serving. And Councilor Harrison, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you so much to Sherry and the program, the Head Start program. During my tenure on council, I've been involved with the Head Start program, and I will tell you, I am very, very impressed with what they do, with the dollars they receive, and the amount of lives that they affect. I think that's really, really important. This is a population that appreciates it and really, really, really needs the help. So thank you for all that you do and the way you stretch a dollar. I like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Shakti?
So I'm not on the advisory committee anymore, but I was. And you were talking about the assessments of the kids and how they're all ready for preschool. And I thought it was worth adding that they improve dramatically during the time when they're in the program. And so it's great that it's assessed, and it's also great that there's such dramatic improvements. And then in terms of, I want to echo what Karen has said, that your team has done such an amazing job. And the sort of objective criteria for that is that we don't have to get recertified as often because the people who came from the federal government were so impressed. So thank you.
We have moved into a modified review thanks to our last annual federal review. So, yes.
Councilor Franks?
Well, I too wanted to echo the thanks to you, and mine's a little bit more of a personal story. I was in Head Start when I was young, so I can attest to my mother. I don't have distinct memories of it, but she said it was just life-changing for us. She was a single mom of 3, and so we benefited greatly from the program. So I wanted to just share that and tell you how much I appreciate the work. I know it makes a difference in children's lives, so thank you.
Councilor Abel?
I just wish there was some way that we could quantify the dollar-for-dollar benefits of Head Start, because when you give a kid a head start on education, it pays us back in so many ways. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well said. All right, well, thank you. Looks like there's no more questions from the group.
Okay.
All right, have a great night.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. The use of the consent agenda has been made to expedite council action. It contains both resolutions and for first reading ordinances. Tonight it'll just be a resolution. Resolutions are items of a routine nature. Members of the public will have an opportunity in a moment to comment on any of the proposed resolutions. Will the clerk please read item 8 into the record?
Item 8, Resolution 2016-7, authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement to establish the Colorado Auto Theft Task Force with the cities of Aurora, Inglewood, and Wheat Ridge, the city and county of Denver, the offices of the district attorneys for the 1st and 2nd judicial districts of Colorado, the counties of Adams, Arapahoe, and Jefferson, and the state of Colorado.
Thank you. And presenting tonight, again, we have Chief Paletta. Welcome. And it looks like Commander Becker is with you as well. Welcome.
If the questions get difficult, I'll call on Commander Becker. Thank you again, Mayor Paul, members of City Council, Chief Kevin Paletta. We are here before you this evening to ask for City Council's approval of an IGA that is going to expand an existing IGA that this body has approved its initial IGA and then at least one amendment to that IGA. And I want to give you a little background on what we're asking and what we're doing. I'm going to go back to 2005 when a group of Colorado auto theft investigators, excuse me, after years of noticing an upward trend in auto theft, worked with local insurance companies to form a grassroots effort. It was the first auto theft prevention authority in the state of Colorado. Insurance companies donated startup funds for that with the purpose of reducing auto theft in Colorado, providing training for auto theft investigators, funding prevention programs, and supporting task forces or overtime to focus on the auto theft problem in Colorado. That same year, 2005, Colorado saw its highest number of auto thefts ever at over 20,000. That grassroots efforts continued for 3 years, and in 2008, the Colorado legislature passed a statute that provided an annual $1 fee on every motor vehicle insurance policy that was written to help provide sustainable funding for this same effort. Again, the focus was on preventing, enforcing, prosecution, and offender rehabilitation around auto theft. That $1 fee generated roughly $4.1 million in the state of Colorado beginning in 2009. That $1 fee, that funding has remained relatively flat, as you can imagine, because as population grows, auto insurance policies don't grow directly proportional. So it's been a relatively flat fee since 2008. That fee also funds staff that includes an executive director and 2 support staff, an analyst and an administrative assistant. That law that was passed in 2008 has a sunset date of 2018. So if the legislature does not continue that beyond 2018, those funds will run out, and that $1 fee will be removed from motor vehicle insurance policies. In 2008 and into 2009, Lakewood led a Jefferson County effort to apply for some of that funding to create a Jefferson County Auto Theft Task Force. That also included this Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, the City of Arvada, the City of Wheat Ridge, and Lakewood. That task force was fully funded in terms of salary and benefits, also in terms of operating expenses and facility expenses, and its purpose was to focus on the most prolific, most active auto thieves and target chop shops and other types of criminal offenders who were committing the majority of the auto thefts in the Jefferson County area. After 1 year, the Denver Police Department requested to join that auto theft task force. This body approved the original IGA that started the Jefferson County Task Force, and it also approved the expansion of the Denver Police Department to be included in that task force. I want to say something that I know Commander Becker doesn't appreciate, but I want to say it anyway. The Denver Police Department, I've been a police officer 34 years. The Denver Police Department doesn't generally work under the command of another organization unless that organization has their fullest trust and fullest respect. The Denver Police Department works under the command of Commander Mike Becker in this auto theft task force, which speaks volumes about his expertise and about the trust that he has formed with the Denver Police Department. In 2012, the Colorado Auto Theft Prevention Authority, which consists of a board that approves grants and requests, began receiving more requests than they had funding for. This was the first time in the 4 years of its existence where the Auto Theft Authority had to make decisions about funding. That year, cuts were made in funding, and the 100% fully sustained the Auto Theft Task Force couldn't support that. So the board, which Mike Becker reports to, Commander Becker reports to, made a decision to contribute city funds to support that Auto Theft Task Force. So in 2012 and since then, 20% of personnel costs have been supported through the funding of the cities that participate in this. For Lakewood, that comes to just about $76,000 a year. So the Auto Theft Task Force Authority Board contributes 80% of personnel costs and 100% of operating costs, equipment, training, overtime, facility costs. The City of Lakewood and the other participating agencies contribute 20% of personnel costs. That's salaries and benefits. Currently, and the proposal before you today is a further expansion of that Auto Theft Task Force. Again, the Auto Theft Prevention Authority had 3 not full-time, but 3 active auto theft task forces working in the metropolitan area. 2 of those were full-time task forces. The one I just described, the Jefferson County Denver Task Force, and a task force called EMAT, which was Eastern Motor Vehicle Auto Theft Task Force, which consisted of Arapahoe County, Aurora, Commerce City. The Auto Theft Prevention Authority could no longer support those 2 full-time task forces and 1 other task force that was headed up by Colorado State Patrol. So in 2014, they let those 3 task forces know that they would need to combine their efforts in order to sustain funding for the remainder of the metro area. Approximately 65% of the auto thefts statewide come from the Denver metro area, hence the need to dedicate those resources to the metro area. Under Commander Becker, several meetings were held to work out and bring together these 3 task forces. As you can imagine, that was a rather spirited conversation that occurred because the policies and the practices of the 3 different task forces were somewhat different. It is the Jefferson County Denver Auto Theft Task Force that has taken the lead in this effort, and it is their policies and their practices that have been awarded the grant and is before you today looking for your support to add these additional agencies. You might ask, so what's in it if we approve this IGA? Well, what's in it is the expansion of the existing Auto Theft Task Force to include the agencies of Arapahoe County, Adams County, Aurora, and Colorado State Patrol, just to mention a few of the key members. Also, additional prosecution personnel will be involved in this, including the Attorney General's office and the District Attorney's offices from Jefferson County, Adams County, and Denver. I want to draw your attention to some of the benefits that the citizens have received through this Auto Theft Task Force, and those are mentioned in the request for council action. The Metropolitan Auto Theft Task Force, the combined Jefferson County Denver Task Force, investigated over 300 felony criminal cases, which involved 325 suspects. Each of those cases had a nexus to Lakewood and Jefferson County. They prosecuted 211 cases, which involved 224 felony offenders. They were involved in the prosecution of 22 chop shops and major racketeering cases. They recovered 222 motor vehicles and parts with an estimated value of $1.9 million. This is just what this task force is doing. This is not all of the auto thefts that are investigated by the City of Lakewood. This is a service in addition to the auto theft investigations that we currently do. It also goes on to mention that they convicted 4 leaders of major racketeering and crime groups, and that their grand jury indictments convicted 8 individuals and 3 leaders on 142 felony charges. So again, the efforts of the Auto Theft Task Force are focused on the most prolific, the most active, and the auto theft suspects and criminal enterprises that are contributing to the largest number of auto theft cases. With your approval, these efforts will be expanded, and Lakewood will continue to lead the command of this organization. If we don't approve this, we either lose the service or we have to come up with the funding to continue this service. Even if it's a 20% contribution, it's costing us, as citizens of Lakewood, under $80,000 a year. If we were to replicate that same service without this grant, personnel costs alone would be over $400,000. Equipment and training would constitute roughly another $100,000. So I would ask that you consider approving this expansion and this IGA to allow us to continue this effort. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate the presentation, and congratulations to Commander Becker for putting up with all these guys in the different counties and communities. That's fantastic. We're very proud of our police department and the fact that we're always looking for ways to team up with other communities to really enhance public safety. And from the list that you read, you can tell that, I mean, this really leads to some serious criminals and some serious criminal enterprises that operate in the community. So it's very important. A couple of questions. Councilor Abel.
Good evening, Chief. I have no concerns about the resolution. Let me say that right off the bat. But I noticed that Arvada used to be part of this. And I know Golden and Edgewater and Douglas County also benefit from this metro-wide force, and they don't seem to be part of the IGA. Can you tell us why?
Arvada was part of it, and due to staffing reductions in Arvada, high attrition rates, they had to prioritize putting police officers out on patrol over participating in this auto theft task force. That was the reason they removed their individual who was assigned to this task force. I need to clarify, but I believe Arvada is going to be part of the future task force. They will be part of the future task force. So once their staffing levels got to the point where they could afford to reassign somebody here, they did. It was a matter of prioritization and staffing. The other agencies don't have the crime problem with regard to auto theft, so they have chosen not to participate. Some of that's a cost return on investment decision. If the Auto Theft Prevention Authority is paying a full-time detective from one of the smaller agencies, they're not getting as much bang for their buck, so to speak.
I won't editorialize. Thanks for the explanation, Chief.
Councilor Roybal?
Thank you, Mayor. You had talked about the previous IGA, and I thank you for doing what you're doing, and thank you for all the hard work. You said the previous IGA had a sunset of, 2017 or 18?
It's actually the statute that sunsets in 2018. So it's the funding and the creation of the statewide Auto Theft Prevention Authority that sunsets in 2018.
Okay. Is this IGA going to be equal to the 2018 sunset?
If the funding runs out, this task force would no longer have the funding to move forward. I guess an option would be to seek local funding for that, but that's a highly doubtful proposition. It would be very expensive to maintain this service.
So to be perfectly clear, that we're looking at a sunset of 2018 on this IGA?
The current statute.
Yes.
There is interest in continuing that sunset beyond the 2018 deadline.
And then you would come back and ask council again?
This funding would be maintained if the state statute is extended beyond 2018. So there probably would not be a need to come back before council for that request. We would most likely no longer continue the task force if the statute sunsets in 2018 and there is no longer funding for that. We can come back and make a presentation on what direction we choose to go if it does sunset. If it doesn't sunset, or if it is extended beyond that, the funding will still be there.
Okay, I'd like to recommend that you come back in front
Certainly.
of council in 2018 and, give us a status report and what's going on and what's happening and get some reclarification from the new council here. So that's all I have.
Councilor Shakti?
So I think as a citizen, it's easy to think that whatever coordination needs to be done so that the bad guys get caught, that's going to happen. And although there's truth to that, I think it also takes some real effort and coordination to bring things together to respond in the most effective manner. And so I appreciate seeing that happening here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And I'll just, to clarify potentially what I heard from Councilor Roybal, if the state legislature does continue, you would only come back to us if there was a change in the agreement, so if another agency came on or came off. But if the state legislature continues to their funding of this program, the IGA would not change. Therefore, you wouldn't come back, but you could continue to give us stats or up-to-date information on the program and what you're achieving in the meantime, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Oh, looks like there are two more. Councilor Franks?
Yeah, I just wanted to get a little bit of clarity. I've been watching on Nextdoor where a lot of folks are reporting that vehicles are being stolen kind of on the west side of town. How does the task force kind of relate to that? Do you guys look for trends? I mean, what are you looking for? How do we translate that into a rash, which could be juveniles or it could be organized crime? How do we... I just want to understand the process because I obviously agree it's a great program because I do think you need to communicate because people just drive from one city to the other. But can you kind of elaborate on that piece?
Certainly. And I neglected to mention that although auto thefts hit an all-time high in 2005, through the efforts of this and other task forces across the state, we were able to cut the auto theft almost in half. In 2010 and 2011, we had a little over 10,000 auto thefts each of those years. So these efforts have been effective. The task force has a full-time crime analyst that is dedicated to analyzing crime patterns and trends throughout the participating agencies. They identify where they are most active, and through that they investigate and target those types of cases. Through those cases, they develop information. It's much like we would work narcotics cases. We develop information when we make an arrest on why are you stealing the car, where's the car going, who's purchasing it, and is this part of a larger enterprise? And it's through some of the information through arrests that we make out on the street, it's through the crime analysis, and it's through the work of the detectives that we identify where we need to target our resources. One thing I think that's important, and I'm sure this body is aware of that, even though we have a responsibility to the citizens of Lakewood, they don't spend all of their time just in Lakewood. So as they travel through Denver, Adams County, and Arapahoe County, utilizing a broader service base and a broader task force provides them additional services in the communities where maybe they work, maybe they seek entertainment. So by doing this, we're actually servicing the citizens, not just where they live, but also where they travel.
Thank you. Councilor Gutwein?
Thank you. I just wanted to thank you so much for your effective and efficient service, and also for the beautiful story that you shared earlier. It was inspiring, so thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Chief, thank you. We will now open the public comment on Resolution 2016-7. Nobody's signed up to speak, but if you'd like to, please come on down. With that, I will close the public comment and ask for a motion, please.
Mayor Paul, I move for adoption of Resolution 2016-7, which was included in the consent agenda introduced into the record by the city clerk.
I second that.
All right, it's been a motion and a second. Any further conversation from the council? All right, we're going to test our new board up here. So please cast your votes. There we go. Now go. All right. And it carries with 11 ayes, 0 nays. Congratulations. Thank you. All right, moving on to general business. Will the clerk please read item 9?
Excuse me.
Do you want Shockey just to make the
go
motion?
into an
Okay.
executive session?
Point of clarification, do you want to go to our reports prior to us going into, so move forward to item 11 and come back to?
I assume the council would prefer not to come back after and do the report.
Correct.
So that can be done now before the motion.
Okay, and for those of you in the audience and watching, we'll be going into an executive session tonight. We'll adjourn our regular meeting from that session, so we will not be coming back in. So we will finish out the meeting with council reports right now. And then we have a motion to go into executive session. Councilor Abel, you have a question?
I just wanted to mention that I guess we will not be taking a vote during executive session, so there will be no need for us to come back to open session. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes, sir, that's accurate. There will not be a question in front of you for action.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll just go over to reports. Kathy, do you have anything?
No, sir, no report.
Okay, thank you. My only report, 2 things. We had our community retreat on Saturday, and we had a really great conversation and learned a lot about kind of different issues that are important to different council members. So look for that information. We'll do a summary and get that out, but I really appreciated the time that was given on Saturday. And on a sad note, the city's first lady passed away within the last week or so, and that was Betty Ritchie, who was married to Jim Ritchie, our city's very first mayor and really the founder of the city of Lakewood as we know it, amongst other people. But her services will be this Wednesday at 11 at Cherry Creek Community Church, Cherry Hills Community Church. Yep. So there was a nice obituary in the paper last Sunday, and definitely was a near and dear person to a lot of people on council. And I know she was heartbroken when she lost Jim about a year and a half ago. So now they're together again. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
I believe that Councillor Abel will probably give the report for the ward meeting.
Okay.
Sounds like he will.
Would you like me to do that now?
Well, let me, do you have anything else? Okay. Council President Shakti.
Just interesting, we were talking about dark skies. We get this Colorado Municipalities magazine, and one of the articles says that in Colorado near West Cliff and Silver Cliff, there's now an international dark sky community designation, and it's the 9th such designation in the world. So they must have different levels, but exciting.
All right, we'll start down with Councilor Gutwein and go on down the line.
All right, thank you. So we have our February Ward 5 meeting, February 20th at 9 a.m. at Bear Valley Church. And we are going to be focusing on the Jewel and Wadsworth intersection. We've been getting a lot of questions about that, so we just wanted to update everyone, and we'll have some staff there to talk about it. And that's all. Oh, I'm sorry. Also just wanted to thank Mr. Vaughn for his feedback about the newsletter, and we will work to get that out earlier. Thank you.
Franks.
Hi, just wanted to remind folks about the Ward 4 meeting this Saturday. It's the second Saturday of each month, 9:30 to 11 a.m. at the Green Mountain Presbyterian Church at 12900 West Alameda Parkway. It'll be an open session where we'll take any feedback on issues, and so please come on out and visit with us. Thank you.
Councilor Coop. Councilor Abel.
On February 20, we will have our Ward 1 meeting at Good Shepherd Church at 9th and Kipling. I'm sorry, Holy Shepherd Church at 9th and Kipling. Thank you, Ramey. We'll be discussing the development along land use projects and development along the rail line and Colfax. Discuss what issues are remaining from the 1310 Independence Street project that was discussed earlier. And then we'll have an open mic about pending issues and issues of concern to the residents of Ward 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Harrison.
My ward mate did such a wonderful job. I'll just say no report.
Councilor Roybal.
Just real quick, Councilor Shakti and I will not be having a Ward 3 meeting on the 27th of February. It has been canceled.
Thank you. Councilor Vincent.
The Ward 2 meeting is 7:30 to 8:30 at the 40 West Arts Building this Wednesday.
Councilor Wickman.
Since my ward mate has mentioned our Ward 4 meeting this Saturday, the only thing I would add is for those of us for years have been pushing that we have the retreat in town. It was great to see that it was a good success. I think it's been cheaper than previous years, and all the money we did spend was in town, and people had an opportunity to observe, and it was a great success, and I'm glad to see we finally turned that corner.
All right, so no more comments. We'll go back to item 9. Council President Shakti.
Mayor Paul, I move to hold an executive session for the purpose of determining positions relative to issues subject to negotiation and to instruct negotiators pursuant to Section 2.15C2 of the Lakewood Charter and CRS Section 246402-4E to consider the purchase of real property by the city pursuant to Section 2.15C3 of the Lakewood Charter and CRS Section 246402-4A, and for matters of attorney-client privilege pursuant to Section 2.1C4 of the Lakewood Charter and CRS Section 246402-4B, and specifically discussing negotiation strategy and instructing negotiators regarding property at the Denver Federal Center and receiving legal advice as needed on matters of attorney-client privilege related to the property. I further move to adjourn directly from the executive session and not reconvene in the regular meeting.
I second that.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Counselor Wickman?
I have some concerns about this. The Open Meetings Act requires proper notification, and I don't know if it really satisfies it, but even if it did legally satisfy it, I don't think it meets the spirit. This is buried at the very end of an agenda under general business, and most people were just totally oblivious to what was going on. As a matter of fact, I have to admit, I didn't realize we were really going to have the executive session today until 4 o'clock. I thought we were kind of setting the schedule for the executive session. I didn't realize we were going into it. Anyway, I don't know if it's legal, but if it is, I don't think it meets the spirit of trying to be open and transparent.
Well, what is required to be posted at least 24 hours in advance is the agenda for a meeting such as the one you held tonight. Executive session motions actually can be made on the fly during a meeting, do not have to be posted on the agenda. So the posting of the entire motion on the posted agenda is really as a courtesy in addition to what's required. If it weren't on the agenda tonight and someone wanted to make a motion to go into an executive session, that still could be done.
And I would just clarify, too, for the folks here watching, we actually had this scheduled in advance for some time last Monday, but due to the weather, it was canceled and put back on this agenda because it is timely, and we want to be able to have this discussion. Councilor Harrison?
Well, I had several people email me and ask questions about the executive session, so I think it's been out there and people have been reading about it, so I think I appreciate the fact that it was last week and now we're doing it. So I think people are aware.
Thank you. So motion second. Any other discussion? Please cast your votes. All right. And that motion passes 10-1, the nay being Councilor Wickman. Thank you. And again, we will not be coming back. So thanks for coming out tonight and drive safely.